My name is Tom Miller. I've been an agent now. This is my ninth year. It's now my sixth year full time. I've been with KW the entire time. And today's class, we're going to talk about basically guarding your financial margins. And the premise behind it is that not only should everybody be working on selling more homes and making more money, but I want to teach you some tactics and skills to make your business as profitable as you can be. Just because in my observations, watching other agents, a lot of them are very good at selling houses, but they are not very good at actually managing their money. And if I can give you a couple tips and tactics, this will really, really help transform your careers. Before we get started, I want to share with you an anecdote. And this has happened when I was a part-time agent. And it's a story that many of you might resonate with. One time I had a seller. We got them a bunch of offers on their listing. I think we ended up getting them like over 20 offers on their listing. And I don't know what happened with the seller, but he ended up kind of ghosting me at the end. And I don't know exactly what happened, if he changed the locks on the property or what happened, but the buyer who purchased the home couldn't get into the house. And you might be wondering, like, what on earth does this have to do with finances? But it's a very important point. The buying agent, I was representing the seller. The buyer agent came to me and said, actually, I should be speaking with you because not yeah, a bunch of people here and a bunch of people online. Buyer's agent came to me and said, Tom, we want you to pay money for a locksmith to redo the locks. And at the time I had a coach and I was like, well, I don't know what to do. Like, this isn't right. It's not my problem. Like, why am I supposed to pay uh to fix these locks? Right. Like, it's not my problem. And so I asked my coach, I said, well, what do I do? And he said, well, how many homes did you sell last month? And I was like none. I'm a part-time agent. Like, duh. I mean, you know, and I was like, I just want to know, what do I do about the locks? And he's like, well, imagine if you were selling 3 to 4 homes a month, would you care about the locks? And I said, no, I wouldn't care at all. He said, you'd probably set up a fund, call like the blank U fund, and just pay $300 and say to the buyer's agent, if I pay you $300, do you promise to never call me again? That's probably what you do. So I did pay the buyer's agent $300 and I asked him to never call me again. And then I went and I set up the fund. The moral of the story is your life will be greatly improved the more houses that you sell. So if you're like a part-time agent and you are selling 2 to 3 homes a year and you end up selling 5 homes a year, you're going to see a huge difference in your life. If you're a new agent and you're selling maybe 10 homes a year and you go to 20 homes a year, that's going to transform your life. If you're selling 20 homes a year and you go to 30 homes a year, it's going to transform your life. But my goal for you is to make sure that you're keeping all of that money, because for every dollar that you earn, there's somebody banging on the door trying to take that from you. Okay. So I want you to keep as much money as you can for yourself. And so today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a couple of things: how to track your business, how to scale your business. And that's a very important concept because many of you probably haven't thought about it before, and how to prune your business. And then we're going to share some bonus material from your favorite swashbuckler agent, from different war stories I've had, and pickles I've gotten myself into, and things Virginia may or may not know about. Some, so basically, here's the most important thing that you need to know is you have a business, you have a real estate business. What's the most important thing in a real estate business? It's profit, right? It's not how many homes you show. It's not how many followers on Instagram you have. It's not anything else. It's at the end of the day, how much profit did your business make, right? Because you are running a business, and there are agents who can't even probably answer that simple question. So like, how do you know if your business is doing better or not? Right? Like someone might say, well, I sold 10 homes last year, and this year I sold 20. Therefore, I'm doing better. Wrong, right? You could actually be doing worse, right? So here are some things that you want to track, right? How much revenue are you bringing in? How much profit did you make last year? What is your profit margin? So if you have two people that sell the same amount of dollar in real estate, one person could actually make a lot more revenue than the other person, right? So like the dollar, not the revenue, like let's just say you have two people that sell $15 million in real estate. One person, if they're doing just a few things differently, might actually make $50,000 to $75,000 more a year in revenue. And you have another person, another person still that's doing different things differently on the expense side. They can actually be much more profitable, right? So if you actually look at your profit margin, you can see like, am I running a profitable, not only a profitable business, but an efficient business, right? What are your top business expenses, right? Do you even know where your money is going to, right? What's your average price point, right? That's helpful. There are agents I know for a fact that probably sell twice as many homes as I do and make the same amount of money as I do because they're working in a lower price point. And there's absolutely like nothing wrong with that. And then I look and there's agents that sell half as many homes as I do, and they just have rich friends. So they make a lot more money than I do. But that's something that's important. So the very first thing that I would encourage you to do, and this is something that I wish I had done years earlier, is I want you to set up a separate bank account for your business. Okay. Now, notice I did not say set up a business bank account. So I have a business bank account because I'm a corporation, and we'll talk about that later. But you need to not have your real estate business in with your personal business. It needs to be separate. So if you're listed as a sole proprietor, in other words, you're just a 1099 agent, right? You're not organized as like a corporation or an LLC. A generic checking account at your local bank is probably going to be fine. The whole point is that you need to have it separate so that you can track all of your expenses. Okay. I'm going to show you here. Bum, bum, bum. Can you guys see this spreadsheet? Everybody in not in the Zoom. You are sharing. You can't see it on the Zoom. It says you're sharing.
Maybe the next slide looks like it could be a spreadsheet.
Share. And then is that one? That one. Boom. Thank you, Martin. So this is what I use to track my business expenses. Now, there are many different ways to do it. Okay. I don't have many transactions. So at the end of, by the way, when I say many transactions, I mean transactions, financial transactions in my business bank account. I've got a few items. I've got my health insurance payment that I make, payment to the brokerage fee, gas, car, yeah. If you have a car payment, it's like literally not that much. So every month I get my bank statement, I print it out, and I literally just manually enter it into a spreadsheet. There's probably different ways to do it. It doesn't take me that long. It might take me like maybe 45 minutes if I'm paying attention and not distracted. But you will see a running like history of my entire bank account from January 1st to December 31st. Okay. Then I take that and I turn it into my profit and loss statement, right? So you can see like this is from 20 to 23. And you can see 2020 was the year that I left my government job and I became a full-time real estate agent in March of 2020. And I believe like I quit on the day of the very first COVID death, right? Like literally it's like I'm like leaving, turning my badge in at the office. It's like somebody died. It's like, oh, expletive. What did I just do? But then, my business has grown each year and, you listed all your expenses. And you can see if you scroll down, like I have a very profitable business, right? For my first 3 years, I was over 80% profit margin. This is before taxes. Last year, well, 2023, it was a little bit less because I ended up just buying my car, like I paid cash for it. So that was like a big auto expense that brought the margin down. It's fine. Like I'm not gonna. At first, I was like, "Damn, I'm no longer 80%." But I'm like, "All right, well, you're 75. Like it's good enough." Right? Like, um, um, it hasn't impacted it really because I'm getting a lot of leads from the Zillow. Those individual leads are less profitable, but we'll talk about that in a minute because it's very important that you know where all of your expenses are going for. Okay. So if you, for example, look and you're spending a lot of money on meals, well, why the hell are you doing that? Right? Or if, for example, let's say you're farming and you're spending a lot of money on mailing advertisements, well, what's your return on that? Right? If, for example, agents now, one of the things I love about real estate is that there's a million ways to do it. You don't have to actually you can be whoever you want. Like there are agents that are wildly successful at social media. I am really an open house agent. I host about 75 opens a year, and I get repeat clients. I get referrals. But it's interesting because when someone says I'm like 90% repeat referral, I'll ask, well, what's the breakdown? It's one thing if you had a great experience with Tom 3 years ago, and now you have a baby or you got married or whatever, and you want to hire me again. That's different than someone actually saying, I had a great experience with Tom, Mr. and Mrs. Friend, you need to call Tom. Because I do get a lot of referrals, but the conversion rate on referrals is actually much lower. It's only about 50%, which is still like, it's not bad, it's good. But to actually have a stranger who you've never met before come to you because one of your clients or friends referred them, in my observation, is a much less frequent occurrence, right? Where the more likely occurrence, hey, Danny, a much more likely occurrence is where somebody who you worked with in the past comes to you and says, hey, I want to buy another house. And often when they come back the second time, they really need two transactions, right? They would need to sell their property and buy something else. So part of this is also thinking about like, what does your quality of life look like? Like I can tell you my quality of life, I think is pretty good. I mean, I take a lot of vacations, I go skiing, I swim every day at the pool, I work out, but a friend of mine sold the same amount of real estate as I did last year, but like 100% of his clients were repeat clients. He wasn't doing opens. I mean, like his quality of life looked totally different. And you're going to notice that as you go throughout your real estate career. So it's important that you track every single expense that you have, and just so that you know what's going on. Bum, 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 and back to the PowerPoint. All right. So that's the profit statement. Okay. So here's some other things that you should track. And again, you could go like ballistic with this and track every single thing. Like I know people that like track, how many people come to each open house they do. I don't. How many people like looked at your listing online? I don't. Like I just care if you write an offer, right? Um, how many homes did you show last year? Like none of those things to me are have any value. Um, it is helpful to know how much revenue did you earn this month compared to the same month last year. That's helpful, right? Because you kind of want to know, like I generally I stop tracking this month by month. I sort of more do it quarterly and half because what I've found is that one month, like 2 years ago in December, or 3 years ago in December, like it was dead, right? I didn't have any deals. Last year I sold like 5 houses, and then in 2024 I sold like 5 houses in December. So just because you did a certain amount of business last year, um, doesn't mean you're going to do the same amount this year in that month. And I tend not to place a lot of emphasis on somebody's at the door. Danny, could you open that one up? The behind, just right behind you. Yep. Um, so here's just another sort of piece of wisdom. Great piece of advice I got. Like when no matter what is going to happen, there's always going to be something that's going to scare real estate agents. And I'm telling you, you need to ignore all of it. So I was not a real estate agent when Redfin came out, but my friends who were said, oh, when Redfin came out, all the agents were scared that like Redfin was going to like lower commissions. Didn't happen. When COVID came out, everybody was like, oh my gosh, like COVID's going to never going to be able to sell no house. That never happened. When interest rates came up, everybody's like, oh my God, like the world's going to end. Like nobody's going to ever buy a house again. That didn't happen, right? When the NAR settlement came out, it's like, oh my God, like this is, the world's going to end. It didn't happen. So uh, just focus on just getting out there and like hustling. But you do want to track on like a general progress, like how you're doing. I also track like my key referral partners, like who is actually giving me like referral business. Because if someone refers me, like I want to thank them and let them know, right? And everybody, um, this is actually a great story. Danny, can I embarrass you for a minute? Danny is a client of mine, and how I met Danny, this amazing story. I was cold calling when I first became real estate agent, full-time agent, and I met a woman in Virginia, and she was really nice. And she goes, I have a son who wants to buy a house. And I met them and I sold them a house in Virginia. And then they had a friend named Danny. And that's how I met Danny. And now, Danny, you're a real estate agent, right? Yeah, that's all. Um, so you want to track like who's referring you, right? You also want to track, I can tell you to the dollar how much money I've gotten in open houses throughout my career, like to the dollar. And every time I'm frustrated, I'm sad, there's a snowstorm, I'm like, like I'm doing this like old open that's been on the market for like 30 days. I look at the spreadsheet and I get motivated and I get my ass out of bed and I go do my open. I could tell you exactly how much money comes in through Zillow. I have a partnership with Zillow. For 99% of you, I would not recommend doing Zillow. Do not do it. Think of Zillow as like a steroids. Like if you ever say, for example, lifted weights or were into athletics, genetically, there's only so much your body is going to be able to do. Like I know I'm never gonna be able to bench like 400 pounds. That's just not me. Do 300, but not anymore. Zillow is like a steroid, right? So there's only so much money you can get from open houses. There's only so much money you can get from referrals. I have sold now about 150 homes. So now I'm getting the boomerang business, but the boomerang business really comes in like year 8, 9, and 10, right? So this will eventually come, but that's not gonna help you pay your mortgage now, right? Like you need now money. So Zillow is like a steroid. It's like, you get calls like people want to see a house. So I pay money to Zillow. It's been very profitable for me. But if you can't work with the clients that you have, and if you're not winning offers, if you're not doing that, like there's skills that you need as an agent. One of them is the ability to get your clients to trust you and help them successfully purchase a home. And of that pattern, you have to know how to get the offer accepted, right? So when you're fighting against 4 or 5 offers, you need to know how to win. If you're struggling to do that with the clients that you have, paying Zillow to give you clients that you don't know how to help is just going to like ruin your credit card and leave you straddled in debt. So I only started doing Zillow when actually I remember Alan Chargan like basically yelling at me. He's like, "What are you doing? Not doing this." He's like, "I know you're like a cheap curmudgeon person, but like you have to spend money on this." And I was like, "All right," and then I did it, right? Because I learned like Alan was doing Zillow and like he got a lot of business from it.
Is your conversion for still better than the referrals that you were mentioning for 50%?
So probably not because I get a lot more Zillow people. Like, let's say over the course of last year, I have to track, I have to look at it. Maybe I had Zillow leads. Now, some of them might be crazy, right? So you talk to them and they're just like wackos or whatever. But if I actually meet you in person and I set up a showing, like there's a 50% chance that you're going to buy the home. So if we talk about like the conversion rate of me meeting you in person and selling you a house, it's the same as someone that gives me a referral. If you talk about the conversion rate as a percentage of every single lead I get to close sales, it's much smaller. Um, so yeah, and I want to know like where does my business come from? Like it comes from opens, comes from Zillows, comes from referrals. Uh, how are you focused like on the split between listings and buyers? Right? Like I'm more slanted towards buyers, but that's a function of my buyers haven't become sellers yet. Right. So yeah, this is a piece of wisdom. Um, if you focus on helping your clients, you're going to sell a lot of houses. If you focus on getting meetings or getting them to sign forms, you're going to get a lot of meetings and you're going to get a lot of forms signed, right? Those are two different things. So I did opens and I actually sucked at them. And actually, I don't think I'm very good at them now, but that's neither here nor there. I focused on getting a meeting. Hey, let's have a talk in the office. Now, before COVID, people actually used to come to the office, right? So that conference room up there, you actually kind of had to like, I don't want to say fight to reserve it, but like it was busy, right? Like, people would meet there. I got a bunch of people to do meetings. And I was like, whoa, I got all these clients I'm like working with, I get this great open pipeline and like none of them bought a house. So I actually stopped doing opens, right? I was pissed. And then one day I said, you know what? I'm going to try something different. I'm just going to say, have a listing on my phone when I'm in the open. And I'm going to say, you know what? Have you seen this one? It's just around the corner. Take a look at it. Take my phone. Wow, it's great. Do you like to check it out? Yeah, when are you free? 301. Like, let's go. And that person who I showed the house to at 301 bought a house. And then the next day, I was like, I wasn't available at 301, but I was available at 8 a.m. the next morning. Like, well, when are you available? I was like, well, we could do 8 a.m. Show them a house at 8 a.m. Those people bought a house. And I was like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? Right now, truth be told, not everybody is that easy. And that's not always going to work. But so many people will say, You were the only agent that offered to show me a house. All the other agents wanted us to do all this other stuff. You just were sending us listings. And you were just showing us houses. And that's what they want, right? So that moment like changed my life. And then that's when the open business like just skyrocketed. And last year, open business was a little bit down compared to the year before, but home sales were at their lowest level in 25 years, right? So as a general rule, I'm not a big proponent of like looking at market trends and making that as an excuse as to why your business isn't doing good, because I don't care what environment you're in, people are making money, right? Like find a way. Like my job every day is to go out and hit open houses and connect with those people. And I don't care if the interest rate is 7% or 2%, doesn't matter who's in office, doesn't matter what's going on, doesn't matter if there's COVID or whatever's going on. Like that is my job. So you never want to make an excuse, oh, the market's down, therefore, no. But like you also have to be honest. Like if home sales are at their lowest level in 25 years, like that will at some level like impact your business. So just don't be complacent and use whatever excuse you want to use as to why your business isn't doing good. All of this also is a good way to humble yourself, right? Because I'll talk with agents and they'll say, oh, I'm big into social media. Great. That's awesome. How much money did you get from it last year? Nothing. But I thought you said you're great at it. Now you could be great at social media. That's awesome. But is that helping you get business? Or someone will say, like I hear a lot of agents that will say, I hate Zillow. It didn't work for me. Well, is Zillow the problem? Right? Like Zillow does what it says it's going to do, right? Like Zillow doesn't say we're going to make you wealthy. Zillow says like we're going to send you buyers, and it's up to you to close them. Or someone will have beautiful billboards and signs and great videos, and they're in suits, and everybody looks like baller, bum 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 bum, and it's like look at your profit margin, shine the light on it. How profitable are you, right? So all of this is super important. Now, scale. Raise your hand for scale. All right. You probably didn't think about this when you became a real estate agent, but it is tremendously important. This is one of the reasons why I love the real estate business, is that it is a very scalable business. In other words, as your business grows, your profit margin should stay the same or grow as well, because most of your expenses should be fixed. Okay? Think about a business like software. Microsoft makes a software package, right? Might cost them, I don't know, like $50 million to pay the engineers and the coders and everything to come up with the product. So that first license that they sell, right, is very expensive for them. The second license they sell is cheap. There's no incremental costs, right? So software is a super scalable business. Pharmaceuticals, same thing. That first pill of whatever magic medicine they make, they had to spend hundreds of millions or $1 billion in research to do, but each other pill they make cost them what, 5 cents to make it. It's the same thing with the real estate business. A friend of mine runs a global healthcare company. I always use this example because it's a totally different business. I remember when he started, he was living in Afghanistan as an aid worker. He would buy used medical equipment from GW Hospital and have it shipped to my house. And then he would fly home on Emirates, because Emirates, if you have status, you can basically, there's like no limit to what you can bring. And this dude would like ship CT scanners in big ass boxes back to Afghanistan and scan them and then send the image to like England or India or Germany to have it read. And now he works all over the world, like in Nigeria, like Philippines, Africa, and like everywhere. That is not a very scalable business. Like think about each country that he has to break into. It's like new entry requirements, new permits, new government bureaucracy he's got to navigate. Once you pay your G card dues, your like desk fees for the brokerage, your health insurance, your car, your gas, Century Lock, MLS, your realtor dues, NAR, nonsense. It's all profit. So if you sell 10 homes and you sell 50 homes, your expenses should be the same. You should be growing and having a wildly profitable business. It's scalable. That you probably never thought about that when you became real estate agent. Like most people say, oh, I like working with people, or oh, I like flexible hours, or I like homes. Actually, I don't say I hate homes. I don't like homes. Try buying a home as a real estate agent. When my wife and I bought a home, she's like, oh my gosh, honey, the toilet. I'm like, it's just a place where you're gonna go to the bathroom or the kitchen. I'm like, who cares? Right? Because I've been in like thousands of homes. It's very difficult for me to like get emotionally attached. Because normally when I go into a house, the first thing when I walk through the door is how am I going to get this for my client? Like, what do I have to do? Who do I have to kidnap? Like, what's going to happen? How do I get it? Right? That's what I do because they're paying me to get the house. They're not paying me for my knowledge of whether it's a tutor or craftsman or colonial. Now I know these vocabulary words, but I used to not know them because it doesn't matter. So the real estate margin is a very profitable business. And guess what? All the things that you're selling are like around you, right? Danny used to have a tech business. And I remember when we were looking for homes, he would have like boxes of computers delivered to him. Like he'd have to store inventory and like all this stuff. You don't have to worry about that when you're selling houses. It's just it's there. And by the way, we live in a very expensive neighborhood, right? The guy that sold my mom and dad's house in New Jersey, you know, he didn't make a lot of money. I'm not sure I could be a real estate agent there. And by the way, in some parts of the country, nobody died, like nobody moves. Where I grew up, my neighbors, so my dad ended up living next to his parents, right? So I lived next to my grandparents. All of our neighbors bought their homes in the 1940s. And the people that were living there had been living there for like 40 years by the time I came around. And I remember like the very first home sale on the block was when I was like 15, right? We live in an area where you can't walk a block without seeing 10 for sale signs, right? And people are coming into the city, people are coming out of the city, and these are really good price points. So even if you're not working in like a super like high end, like you see the people that work in like Sotheby's or whatever, they might deal with like $3 million listings. One, I would argue that there's just not enough of them, like a critical mass. Like, yeah, maybe another saying, you have a better chance selling trailer homes and living in a luxury home than you do growing up in a trailer selling luxury homes. Right. So I grew up from a very like humble background. I moved to DC, like I don't have, family here. I don't have like rich friends. So the likelihood that I'm gonna get like a $20 million listing, I don't know, it's pretty low. Not that I want to have like a self-defeating prophecy, but I want to be realistic, right? Like I doubt that you just like send advertisements to those neighborhoods and someone calls you. It's probably through the country club or whatever. But either way, there's a whole bunch of homes that cost like $1 million. That's pretty easy to do, right? Like any open house that you do in DC, it's gonna be a good price point, right? Like, and if making a $25,000 commission check isn't good enough for you, well, I think we have totally different standards. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about, so by the way, I want to interrupt. In Zoom land or in person, does anyone have any questions about anything we've spoken about thus far or anything that we haven't spoken about? Nope.
think, Tom,
Oh.
the point about, you know, your fixed expenses are going to be the same, so 1,050 is really good, because when you look at your fixed expenses, let's say between G-Card and Bright MLS and Sentry, and, you know, you have $5,000 right there. And you sell a house, and
Yeah.
the commission check is 10,000, then 50% went away right away.
Yeah.
But as you sell the second house and the third and fourth, then that's when your profit goes up
Right,
and your fixed expenses as a percentage of income goes down, right? So, we have a lot of agents in the brokerage that have highly profitable, especially if they are sole agents, highly profitable businesses because they keep the expenses very, very high, right? Like if you're not paying crazy amounts of money in advertising, everything else is very manageable.
right. And another thing to point out, and let's talk about the elephant in the room, is like one of the key things that you need to know is how much you pay a broker every year. Right? I've been with Keller 8 years, actually 9 years, I think. And I know how much I pay the broker. It's a cap. It's fixed. Right? And it doesn't matter, you know. So probably once a month I get recruited by Compass and other brokerages. And when you say to them, all right, so if I took the same amount of houses that I sold this year and I actually work for you, like I'm paying you on every single house that I sell, it actually becomes like a lot more expensive. And I won't say his name, but I talked to a very, very, very successful agent at Compass. And I actually tried to like recruit him to come to class. And he had no idea how much he paid his brokerage. He had no idea. The dude makes probably $1 million a year and had no idea how much money he paid the broker. But when he figured it out, like when we did it on the phone, he was like, oh. And I was like, yeah, oh, it's right.
Well,
Right.
Going back to
Yeah.
that point, right, like if you, let's say he's sold $1 million, he's not getting 10%, which is the best Compass will ever give anybody, that's 100,000.
It's $100,000. Yeah. And that's if he's in the best, if he gets to that point.
So, for agents, their actual speed in the market sector is 1%, 2%, 5%, right? Because
Yeah.
you have to pay the $1,000, you know, cap. Between all your transactions, your effective split.
Yeah.
1%.
Yeah,
And nobody's offering that.
right.
So,
And then there's brokerages where, you know, you're not paying anything, but like you're also like not getting anything. So when we talk about like the scalability of the business, you know, and by the way, like nobody told me to say anything about that, like whatever, but it's just important that you have to know, like that's a key metric, like how much you're paying brokerage. Now we also need to prune the business. This is important. I call it mowing the lawn, right? Mowing the lawn. So every so often, now one of the benefits of like keeping track of your business and doing this like manually, although I'll fully admit there might be like maybe a more efficient way to do it, is that I catch abnormalities in my business. So for example, I'll give you a silly one, but it's true. I'm cheap and I always cancel my New York Times subscription and then sign up with a different email address. And so I can pay like $4 a month for it. So when I see that the New York Times was like $40 a month, I'm like, no, 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 hold on. Right. So I can track it. When I look at, for example, how much money like we spend on meals, and in COVID, literally that year was like $200. Like we didn't eat out at all. Right.
And you survive.
And we survived. And when I track it, I'm like, am I really spending, like, is this really worth it? Or back to Zillow, I think of it as like the Costco model. Like, so imagine if you're a winery in California and you make wine and you're selling your bourgeois, like fancy wine for $40 a bottle. Your profit margin on that might be like $35. Costco comes around and says, hey, we'll buy 10 million bottles of wine, maybe not 10 million, but like maybe 500,000. We'll sell them in Costco for $15 a bottle. We'll call it Kirkland. And instead of making $30 a bottle, you might make $10 a bottle. That's still very profitable. Like that's how I see Zillow leads. Like those leads are still very profitable. The margin on them is less than say like an open house lead, but it's still money, right? And I'm between, it depends on exactly like what month you talk about, but I'm between like a 3-to-1 and 4-to-1 return on my Zillow investment. I had this is a good one. So I used to have a transaction coordinator who charged me money, and I got rid of her and made my wife do it. That's wrong. I didn't make her do anything. She wanted to do it. I'm not like, chauvinist or anything. But she did it. And so we were able to cut out that expense, right? I had a coach, sort of, I think not very good and useless, like I cut that out. I was spending money on like a cold calling platform that I wasn't using. I cut that out. Um, I accidentally had 2 health insurance policies going a little bit that I didn't realize. So I cut that out. Right. And so um, what you want to do is make sure that you're constantly looking at your expenses and cutting anything out that doesn't need it. Like, do you really need to have like a Mercedes-Benz car? Like, really? I drive a Mazda CX-5. It's really nice. I like it. It's good enough for clients. Um, Another thing is we just talked about the expense side, and I want to talk to you about the revenue side. I charge an admin fee of $725. Okay. The brokerage invoices me $225 for compliance, right? This is a service that we are doing for clients, right? One of the reasons why I stay with the brokerage is because we have that compliance team. Melinda, it can be a very persnickety and a thorn in people's sides, but she is doing a job. She's ultimately trying to protect me as an agent and protect my clients. And we are legally obligated to store your records for 3 years after settlement. This is something that we don't have to do. Therefore, the client pays for it, right? We don't have to do it. I could write a contract on a paper napkin and get a commission check. Hey, big guy, you want to come and sit on the class? Yeah, you want to come on in? No? Okay.
It's not right to be an agent.
So the client pays for that, right? Same thing. I do my very, very best to give my clients hopefully a world-class experience. I want their process to be seamless. And the feedback I get from my lenders and the title company is that my clients are prepped, they're coached, they're like, it's so easy with you. I hold their hand from the time we go over the contract. Like, one of the reasons why I win almost all my offers is because I've prepped my clients to be savage. I was going to say the word killers. I don't want to say that. Just savages to attack the listing. So we have a whole process, walk them through the contract, how I explain everything. That builds the trust. We get the offer accepted. So now we're doing, the home inspection. They're not going to be Googling Bob's home inspection service. They're going to hopefully be using someone I've worked with hundreds of times. It's a seamless process. We do everything for them. We can even get them the reduced reissue rate for title insurance. If you don't know this, remember Harrison Beecher taught me this many years ago. If you have a seller that has a title insurance policy, if you ask them to give you their policy, you can save your buyers like $1,000 sometimes in savings, because they can do a reissue rate. They literally take their name off the policy and put the client's name on instead of originating policy. So we do all this. We charge them $500 for it. It's actually work that we're doing, right? And by the way, when we save the money on these fees, like we get that money back and then some. Now take that over time. Okay, let's say you're doing 25 transactions a year, 20 times 725 times 20 years. Do it right now. 20 times 725 times 20. That's $300,000. That's almost 3 years of my government salary. Right? You shave 3 years, like someone, it would take someone 3 extra years if they're working for the federal government to make that. And you just brought that in simply by charging a fee. And again, it's not a baloney fee, like it is a thing. And in fact, in all of my home sales, only one client refused to pay it. I wouldn't work with them because they were very mean and disrespectful. Right? So it just like people get it. You can even experiment with charging your buyers extra to top off the commission. Right? So let's just say a buyer that's only offering, or seller is only offering 2%. And you're like, well, that's not really, I mean, that's sort of bogus, I think, to be honest. You can ask your buyer to top you off, right? If you want to charge 3% and it's 2.5%, you can ask your buyer to top it off to 0.5%. Right? My last 4 transactions I've done it. It's yielded me over $12,000 in revenue. Nobody's, again, if your clients trust you and if you're doing a great job for your clients, it's very easy to explain, hey, the seller is paying almost all of my commission. You just have to pay a little bit. Like they're paying 80% of it. You just need to pay 20%. And most people have no problem with it. But now factor that in over 20 years. It's a lot of money, right? So, just looking at this. Okay, this is a good one. This is probably gonna knock your socks off and blow your mind away. How many of you, so every one of us gets a 1099, right? So that by default, you're classified as a sole proprietor. So that's cool. Like, so even when I was a part-time agent, I was 1099. I could still write my car off. I could still write my cell phone off. I could still write off these expenses. However, one of the downsides of that is that you pay payroll taxes on every dollar that you earn, right? It's 15%. Now, this may not be applicable for all of you, depending where you are on your business. But when I got to a certain level, my tax advisor was like, you really need to be an S Corp. It's an S corporation. So we all pay income on all the dollars that we earn, right? Now we will have deductions. So you can deduct certain things to lower the amount of income that you pay tax on. However, when you have yourself as an S corporation, you have 2 types of compensation. You have a salary and a distribution. Okay. The tax implications of that are massive. Okay. So I pay myself a salary. That's a small portion of my overall earnings. So I have to pay payroll taxes on that. So that means, like, let's say if I pay myself like 100K, I pay payroll taxes on that 100. You don't pay payroll taxes on the rest. So let's say if you make 400K, if you're organized as a sole proprietor, you're going to pay what's 15% of 400, $60,000, right? Am I smart enough to do math? Can't do this on the fly. $60,000, right? Yeah. If you're an S corp and you paid yourself 100 grand and 300 was a distribution, you would only pay $15,000. So 2 people that made the same amount of money were just organized a little bit differently. One paid $45,000 more in taxes than the other one did. Now, I had a conversation with an agent, very successful agent, sold a lot of real estate. And he was like, the words that this person said to me was, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. Open all your Venmo apps right now and send me money. if you don't want money, like I will take it. Yeah, I will take it. I will take it. I will not even be greedy, but I will donate some of it to charity. If you really don't want it, I'll happily take it. Please, I would love it. Right? So this is the point. So now compound that over time. Right? So yes, you're gonna help yourself by looking at meals, right? And you're gonna help yourself by being a frugal miser and playing around with your Wall Street Journal subscription, make it $4 a month and $9, right? Like all of this will be like helpful for you. What will really help you is if you focus on selling more houses. And what will really help you is if you get your act together and set yourself up with your tax advisor and get set up that way. Because yeah, I mean, like, sure, the goal is to be as profitable as you can, but you know, the margin return of all of your effort isn't the same, right? Like spending extra time putting these reports together, and that spreadsheet that I told you that I keep my expenses with, that goes to my bank, my tax advisor, and that is how he does my taxes every year. And you talk about, like, let's say you're saving 40 grand in taxes over 20 years. I mean, you're looking at almost $1 million extra in earnings just because you took the time to talk to a tax advisor. And I'm not kidding. Like, I bet you if you survey 99% of the agents, they're not set up like this way. They're just not. So that person, I'm like, I was like boggled with how much money they're spending. They're literally paying payroll tax on everything that they earned. And even it was the same with the Compass agent. He was just a 1099. He had no idea. And I'm like, you literally could sell half the houses that you do and still make the same amount of money if you just organize them better. So let's see, we've got, and by the way, that's my CPA. If you ever like want to talk to him, like that's his email address. He's really good. I've been with him like for years. Yeah, he's really good. It's also helpful to have an actual tax specialist and not a CPA, because not all CPAs are tax people. Like I have a brother-in-law who's an accountant, CPA, and he's like, don't ever talk to me about tax. Like I'm audit stuff. I don't know anything about tax. And even on the tax side, you really want to have somebody that works with small businesses, because like it's great if your friend or whatever, like I have clients that are tax attorneys and they're dealing with like large corporations and like international tax stuff, not helping small businesses. So you really want to work with somebody that like works with small businesses. So bum. So yeah, this, I've talked about this before, like, scrutinize your expenses as you look through your records. You just want to make sure, like, are you really getting a return from this? For example, I have a client event party every year, and actually this year I had to pay for it because it was much bigger than last year, right? So I had a whole bunch more people like me than they did last year, or maybe I just picked a better date or whatever. But like, yeah, my lender, my title company, my contractor, and my electrician all contributed towards it, right? So I got a great event. It was really nice, and last year I didn't pay for any of it. This year I paid for just a little bit of it. Guard all of your margins, right? Protect your time, protect your emotional well-being. The job, I love what I do, but it does take a toll on you. Like this summer, we were in Switzerland, and I put an offer on a house for a client like right before I got on the plane. And I'm like, all right, put the offer in, cool. I'm land in Zurich. It'll be the morning. By the time I get checked into the hotel, offer deadline will be there, like 1 o'clock. I'm gonna find out that I won. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna just drink some beer, go to bed, have a sold house. Yeah. Didn't work that way. Put the offer in a house, land in Zurich, didn't sleep on the plane. Now I'm like driving, like half asleep, right? We get to the hotel have our dinner, get checked in. My wife and son are like, okay, well, we're gonna go to bed. I'm like, that's great for you guys. Cool. So it's like, now it's like 4 o'clock. So I'm just hanging out, at my table. Like 7 o'clock comes, I'm like, all right, it's now 1 o'clock back in DC. I should be getting a phone call anytime now. It's like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. Now they're closing up the restaurant, but in Switzerland, they're very chill, like especially if you're in like these little villages. So you're like, you could just stay and hang out, like in the lobby, drink whatever you want, just tell us what it is, put it on your tab. So I'm like, all right, reading my book, hanging out. Now it's like 2 in the morning, and I'm like, what is going on? And I like to consider myself one of the most laid back, polite people, but I blew my gourd because I'm like, this shit needs to be wrapped up. Like, I'm sorry, like, you have an offer deadline at noon. That means like 1 o'clock, we're ratified. We don't need, don't tell me we're gonna have a deadline at noon and then talk to your seller at 9 o'clock at night, which is now 3 in the morning in Switzerland time. So I got on the phone, and after you've not slept for 2 nights, that's not the time that you should be calling someone. It's just not the time. And I was like, you need to get this contract signed. Like, what's going on? What's like, what? You know what I mean? Like, this is bullshit, whatever. And my friend, who's another real estate agent, was like, Tom, who are you trying to talk to? Like, seriously, who are you talking? He's like, it's me. He's like, you need to get some sleep and like go to bed, right? So all this to say, we end up getting ratified. Good thing I didn't actually talk. I thought I was calling listing agent, but I like misdialed because I had 72 days. So we ended up getting ratified. It's 4 in the morning. But the whole point is that guard your margins on your time, right? Like if you can find a way to have a friend in the business that you trust that can help you out in these situations, it's helpful. A few years ago, took my wife and son to Israel and Jordan and Palestine. Like we're in the West Bank. And I'm like, man, I'm not gonna do crap in the West Bank. Like that's just not happening. Or we're in the desert camping. So I had a friend and we worked it out. It's also okay to say no to a bad client. People, you need to work with people that like respect you. If they don't respect you, then why are you working with them? Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, so this is what I would do. Every transaction that comes in, like pay your taxes first. Then fund your operational account. Like I love to have about 6 months of expenses, like sitting in liquid cash. Fund your fun account. So I have an account that we put money into so that when we want to go on vacation, when we want to buy like a bicycle or like whatever, like we can do it because we planned. Focus on being the best that you can be. This is a great book. It changed my life. It's called The Millionaire Next Door. I highly recommend everyone read it. It basically, they did a survey of like a bunch of people that have a net worth of $1 million or more. And what they found out is that most of them really just earn slightly above average and they're just really good managing their finances. And a lot of the people that like make a lot of money on paper actually don't have a lot of net worth because they're just bad with their money. And that's it. That's basically all I've got. Yeah. Any questions? And Zoomland or anything else? Great. Yeah. We'll have like 5 or 6 closings in January. So off to a good start and just focus on it and don't let the past influence you. Like last year, I had 4 deals fall apart. I had a hard time with it, but focus on all the homes that you're going to sell over a 20-year career and don't have a pity party.
All right, well, I'm going to thank Tom.
Yeah.
So much for the meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming and thank you everybody on the Zoom. So this was a great class and I think Tom is very disciplined, right? And very systematic in terms of how he runs his business. So I'm sure that if you have any follow-up questions, he will be more than happy to connect with you one-on-one.
So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome, cool. What's that? Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, so I can have it too.
You want to,
Absolutely.
yeah, with the,
I have a slide that says the word Canada. That would be good. Let's do this.